Shannon Steele. Why did I say that one more time?
Start again.
Why did I say I'm sorry, Shayna Sealy.
Because we were just talking about Shayna Blazer.
I'm fine. I call my dogs my children's names. Okay. Today we have Shannon Steele, who is a dedicated advocate for mental health and community well-being. She's a certified yoga instructor and also a hardcore mountain biker. And she has founded Be Well Big Sky. Thank you for coming today,
Yeah,
Shayna.
thank you for having me.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us.
I am a fellow mental health advocate here. I, in Big Sky, taught improvisational classes to high schoolers and middle schoolers in the vein of mental health advocacy. Like we did a lot of, it was like therapy sessions every day, but with improv. And so that was very fun. What drew you to the mental and behavioral health world?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about growing up in a fairly chaotic family, I am sure that had some sort of pull to that interest. But one distinct memory that I have was, back in 8th grade all the way through high school, having a friend who was really struggling after moving away. We stayed in touch throughout the years, but just noticing and witnessing his experience of sadness that extended beyond like a very short period of time. So when I was really trying to be there for him, I just found myself not knowing what to do or what to say anymore, where he would experience sleeping more often than usual, not being engaged in anything he was interested in anymore. And when that lasted over a year, and then hearing about his dabbling in drugs and him sharing that the only time he felt happy was when he was on drugs, that's when I started to become even more concerned and really just started diving into researching mental health. And I would go down rabbit holes of what do drugs do to your brain, and ended up completing a research project on depression and found a lot of parallels to his experience within that. And then that led me to get a degree in psychology and various experiences working with different types of people, whether it was youth that had a lot of struggles at home and they were in a residential facility. I also worked with adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities, and eventually worked at a behavioral health hospital for a period of time where patients there either attempted or had persistent thoughts of self-harm. And similar to what I experienced when I was in high school, of this like helplessness of what can I do? There's nothing that I can do. I kind of sensed that when I was working at the hospital as well, that there was only so much I could do, and that this issue was just like bigger than all of us, that it really was the environments that these folks were growing up in. It was the ecosystem. And so that led me to pursuing a degree in community health and prevention sciences, and more of this macro level approach to improving our well-being. And I mean, you mentioned I am a yoga instructor. And so I have this deep interest in the mind-body connection. And so I could definitely nerd out about the science of stress and trauma and how that manifests in the body, but also how we have tools and skills within ourselves to deal with that, to cope with that. So I researched that when I went to get my master's and worked with veterans on campus. So learning about how trauma can manifest and then ways in which to address that.
But it all sort of stemmed from this friend that you had growing up. How is your friend doing now?
Unknown. We don't keep in touch
Okay.
anymore. So hopefully he's doing well.
Some good came of
And
that situation, though, which is
some
great.
good came of it. Yeah. And I mean, that whole realm, I mean, the self-medication there for depression and whatnot is so important to see with people, because you just see people with addictions and you don't realize they started, doing drugs because it made them feel okay versus how they felt without them. And physical stuff is huge. That's why I run. Like, I've run since I was 18 months old. My parents are big runners. My sister and brother are runners, and it's just in my blood. But like, I have worn Apple Watches on runs before, and my heart rate doesn't even go up that much, but my mental capacity for the day, like Joe can tell if I
can attest to this.
He can attest to it. There have been times where I haven't had time. It's like been the end of the day, and he was like, "Whoa!" And I'm like, "Yeah, see, I didn't get to go running today. I didn't get to process. I didn't."
Exactly.
Because it's my meditation. So yeah, I absolutely am an advocate for the mind-body connection.
Yeah, and I love that it can be in so many different forms for people, depending on what really resonates with them. It's not a one thing fits all.
Yes. No, I'll listen to classical music while running.
Yeah.
It's just, and everything is just crystal clear. I love it. Anyway, enough about me.
Speaking
Back to you.
of doing good, you founded Be Well Big Sky. Talk a little bit about the mission, what that organization is about.
Yeah.
When did you start it, by the way?
Sure. Yeah, it's hard to talk about the mission without going back to how it all started.
Yeah.
So I definitely would love to start there. And honestly, this kind of goes back to when I first landed in Big Sky and I worked as HR and housing manager at the Hungry Moose Market and Deli. Yeah. And I noticed and witnessed firsthand some of the struggles of the Big Sky, living in Big Sky and the challenges that people face. And I was often the first point of contact for people, especially with housing.
Yeah.
If something was happening in housing, they would call me. And it was often a mental health or substance use challenge or financial barrier to accessing support. And so I was a person really trying to navigate the system with and for them, and just finding a lot of challenges with that. Like, we don't have a lot of resources at the time in Big Sky, or it would take a lot of phone calls or conversations to try to figure out how to access it. So when I started working for the Yellowstone Club Community Foundation as their behavioral health program officer, I was really coming with this lens of the challenges and the barriers that people face. So at the Yellowstone Club Community Foundation, there was this effort that they were leading the charge on of coordinating with community members and organizations that really cared about the well-being of the Big Sky community. And since COVID, and also since the publication of this behavioral health report that really kind of shined light on the things that we already intuitively knew around the challenges of barriers to access, the stigma that exists around mental health, and then the culture that's really centered on drinking in Big Sky.
Oh yeah.
This group of people, like, they were just basically saying, we need to do something about this. And so I stepped into that role of coordinating and convening all of these people to say, okay, what do we want to do about it? And coming from my community health background, really thinking that, and also the collective effort, was that community voice needs to be at the center of everything that we do. And the thing that we kept hearing and saying was that, hey, we do have some resources that exist, but we just need people to access them. They don't know where to go. They don't know how to access. And that's where this concept of navigator came up, where in the report, it was a suggestion to hire a navigator, but we know that word of mouth works so well in a small town.
Yeah.
And what would it be like if we had an entire network of navigators that were embedded in our community that could connect people to the resources that they need? And
low key, kind of, right?
Yeah, like normal everyday people, whether it's a ski patroller or a bartender who could just notice that something was up with someone
and suggest.
Tap them on the shoulder and say, like, hey, do you need some help? Or maybe there was someone that people already went to access support. And so that kind of...
Yeah, you've got some great navigators. Some of our favorite people in the community are your navigators, which is amazing that you've sort of drafted them.
What other local organizations are you working with?
Well, we have navigators at Big Sky Resort and the Yellowstone Club at Montage. We have some at Lone Mountain Ranch, the Hungry Moose, of course, and we have also provided trainings across different organizations as well. So our navigators host emotional first aid at Moving Mountains, or we've done trainings at Santosha.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I know all these people. But yeah, that's so all these people are kind of helping you funnel the mental health issues towards the right resource. There's a local organization that has that really gone into advocacy because our high suicide rate here in Montana. I cannot remember the name of it. We saw them at Prospera, but they have an online component to where you can access, a therapist and something like that. Do you have something like that in Big Sky to where, people that don't necessarily have the time, because people in Big Sky are working like 2 or 3 jobs, and they're like, I just don't have time or the resources to afford help. How is your organization managing that aspect of it all? Because there's a lot of people I know that say that's the reason for not reaching out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that we partner with organizations that offer those services. So we're basically a platform or hub to host information about those services. So cool. Be Well Big Sky is a resource navigation tool that you can find a one-stop shop to find that therapist or the online therapist to access. So we have like wellness and action information on there. And then the Psychology Today tool, if people want to research a teletherapist, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But we don't provide therapy as an organization.
Yeah, I didn't know if you funneled into that network here in Montana, because there's so many people that have just been alarmed by the high amount of suicides.
Well, yeah, Montana has the nation's highest suicide death rate, which is an alarming statistic.
And Joe told me that, and I was like, it's because we have more guns. Sadly.
But it's got to be a multifaceted, complex problem that we're facing. What do you know of any sort of like, partial solutions? What do you see as being the way that we address it?
Yeah, it's definitely complex, and it's definitely multi-layered. I think you mentioned the access to firearms is one. We know that the rates of deaths by firearm are higher across the board.
Well, what happens when people take pills, they'll take like a bottle of pills and then their fight or flight kicks in and they're like, I'm going to call 911, where you can't do that with a gun.
Right.
So people have a second thought and they're trying the other way.
Yeah, and I think there's different challenges to living in a mountain resort community as well, whether it's geographic isolation and lack of access to a plethora of resources. Right. The cost of living is higher, so the cost of services is a challenge. Transportation, and then that culture piece that we mentioned around every day is a Saturday and everything is about drinking.
Oh my God, yeah. No, I went there right after high school for my gap year.
And all of your customers are on vacation, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're just constantly surrounded by people who are
partying,
letting their hair down.
Vacation
And that's
vibe.
tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the other thing to mention is we say stigma a lot, but like, what is that actually? It's really this culture around, I have to do this alone and I have to deal with this alone. I need to just buck up and do it, or I'm just going to stuff it down and silence it because there is some shame around talking about mental health or substance use. And so it's really about how do you shift that culture to say, hey, this is a part of being human and it's okay to be messy and it's okay to reach out for help. And so there's definitely a lot of research across the nation trying to figure out what is the best solution for the suicide problem. And where I've been leaning into that data is really around kind of creating this ecosystem where people can thrive and really putting in place the protective factors that would reduce that risk of suicide. So that means increasing social connection and the sense of belonging and community, and building people's resilience skills or coping skills, and having supports that are embedded in the community versus having to go out and get that help 45 minutes away. How do we have that within your workplace, within your friends and neighbors?
If you're in a dark headspace, it's hard to reach out. But like one thing that the school systems are doing, and as a teacher, like we're trained very well on prevention of suicide and stuff because of the issues that we face in Montana. And one of the biggest things that I want to say on this podcast is do not be afraid to ask someone, and I know you probably know this, like, are you thinking about committing suicide? Like, straight up ask that question. Don't say, are you sad? Because if you're suspecting that,
Dance around it.
Don't dance around it. Ask the question. And, the statistics say that will actually give you an answer. Because a lot of times when people are thinking that, they will say, yes, I am. And so that's when you, find the help.
Yeah, where you can be really direct.
Yeah,
and,
I think the directness is important.
And straightforward. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's this sense of somebody coming from their own lived experience to meet someone where they're at is actually huge. Yeah. And that's why this peer-to-peer model that we're building in Be Well is so powerful, is because these folks are embedded in the community. They're trusted. They're coming from their own experience. And they're not afraid to ask those hard questions of, no, how are you really doing? Yeah. And being able to lean in the moment, because they may talk to a friend for over a year to suggest going to counseling, but it will take maybe a year for that friend to actually go and make that appointment.
I know. I have a friend where I'm just like, you need to see a therapist. Now we're going to do it, because she keeps putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. I'm like, no, when you're going through a trauma, you got to do it. Therapy's great.
Yeah. And it's such a leap for people when they're in it, when they're in the depths of their mental health challenge or substance use, to make the cold call for help. Yeah. So it's huge to have a navigator or someone they know that can make the call with or for them. Yeah. That can really be that bridge.
Speaking of the substance abuse, though, a recent CDC study found that Gallatin County is the drunkest county in America.
Whee!
And certainly that plays a role in everything that we're talking about. That seems like a tremendous challenge. Is that something that we just can tackle one person at a time? What do we do about this?
I don't think I have all of the answers, for one. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in that, but
Does that all stem from what we were talking about, the challenges of living in a
It's the
resort
mountain town
town
isolation.
Yeah, and I think it's the culture shift. I think it's also the awareness that there are people that can live in a mountain resort town and not drink and have a lot of fun too. Yeah. And we have a lot of navigators that have been through their own experiences around the drinking culture, and really they just want to shout out there that, hey, I like to have fun too, and I can go down to the bars and not have a drink and have a good time. Yeah. And there's other people around that are doing this. Yeah. And so there's so much social pressure around drinking, because every event often is paired with drinking. Yeah. And so it's about creating options for ways to connect that are not centered around drinking.
Reverse peer pressure.
Yes. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's just part of mountain culture, I think.
It's true.
The isolation plays into it.
Now
but
we can turn
you guys
to
are
the
changing.
Yeah,
you guys are changing gears and trying to make people feel received and welcomed in the mental health community, because that's why group therapy works so well. It's like, oh wait, I'm not the only person feeling this. So you guys are doing a storytelling event coming up, right? Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
8 local storytellers, sharing personal tales of overcoming mental health challenges. October 1st, Lone Mountain Ranch. That just to get it all out of the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you can talk about what it really is.
Yeah. So I think we
pack some details in.
I'm sure she knows that.
Well, I think that there's so much power in storytelling, and storytelling is this ancient old way of sharing knowledge in civilization, just passing down knowledge, but also passing down ways in which to navigate life challenges. And so that is part of it, where when we share stories, we get to highlight, one, the challenges that we go through, but also how we got through it. And it's an opportunity for others to almost see themselves within that story, and to really understand this is actually a larger part of the human experience. And that can allow us to feel way less isolated and way less alone.
Yeah.
The oral tradition.
Yes. October 1st with 8 people. Just in case you were wondering the details, Joe has them.
And the theme of it is over, under, or through.
Yes.
And so give me an idea of what kinds of stories people can expect to hear.
Yeah, so one over, under, or through is kind of this nod at navigation too, of how do you navigate life's challenges? How do navigators help you navigate how to seek help, how to get through things not on your own? So that's one. This was chosen by the
Also, the theme of
Navigators.
going on a bear hunt book.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gonna catch a
Do
big
you go
one.
over it? Or do you go under it?
Age-old tale, right?
Yeah.
That we've grown up with.
Yes. Yeah. And it like applies to adulthood as well.
Yes. Yeah. So these are real personal stories, and it's maybe how people found their way to Big Sky, away, and then back again to Big Sky. It's about really building relationship between their truth and their voice,
Okay.
and stories of recovery and about hitting rock bottom and then coming up from that. In mental health struggles and how they may have accessed the supports that they needed to then kind of move through that. And I think the biggest thing, though, is that these are stories from our community.
Yeah.
And they're going to be engaging. They're going to be funny, heart-wrenching, but uplifting and hopeful. And ultimately, these stories about resilience and the healing that we can find in community.
Right.
And it'll probably resonate because these are folks you have a lot in common with.
Absolutely. Is there a way, so if there's somebody that's working and can't make it, is there a way for them to access that? Are you guys going to record it?
Yes, we
Okay.
are having a videographer at the event, so
Okay.
we'll be capturing each of the full stories and then just kind of an arch of what the evening was about. So we'll definitely be sharing that whenever that's done. And this is hopefully an annual thing for us. I think storytelling is core to who the Navigators are and what they do. So stay tuned for future storytelling events as well.
Nice.
All right. Do people need tickets or can they just show up?
Yeah, so tickets are accessed on Eventbrite.
Okay.
So you can put in their live storytelling event in Big Sky. And we are having a variety of options. So sliding scale from $15 to $35. And we have a handful of tickets that will be comped if anybody has barriers around cost.
Yeah.
All right. And that link will be on the episode description. So that I'll make it very easy for people to find and buy their tickets and go to the event. Unless you have anything else, questions that we failed to ask.
Do you
we'll
know
move
how
on.
many people are coming to the event? 8 storytellers.
Okay. We will move on
You
to
can tell
the
we've been married like 20 years.
DMG, the Dumb Marmot game.
Oh,
We're
I
gonna
can't wait.
Yeah, this
Oh,
is
now you've GMG'd it. All right.
short storytelling. And we're just going to give people a little taste because the three of us are going to take turns telling very short stories of our own overcoming mental health
I
challenges.
have so many. I could start and not
But when
end
I
until
say
tomorrow.
short, I mean short. We're going
I
15
know.
seconds, okay?
Okay, fine. Who's going first?
We'll let Michelle go first.
Oh, geez. Okay. Are you going to start timing me
Yeah.
now?
Ready? And short storytelling, Michelle, go.
I had breast cancer, and at that point, I was going into the accelerated nursing program and decided not to do that because I spent a lot of time with nurses in hospitals, and it was really horrible. So I started working in the school system, and it was great.
time is
And I
up.
decided to become a teacher because of that, and I love it. It's hard work, but I love it.
Very good.
Oh, thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome.
Do you want me to go?
Yep.
Okay. Shannon does not want to do this. I love it. All
On the
right.
spot.
No, that was not a good 15-seconder, apparently.
All right. I'm going to do the pandemic. That's the easy one for me because my show that I thought we were going to have 4 seasons on, but that got canceled. And so in 2020, there I am locked in a Big Sky condo. And so I started a podcast instead. Everything's gone swimmingly since then. There we go. Time's up.
Nice work on that 15 seconds, beginning to end.
Packed it
Not
all
a-
in.
This is it. Yeah, okay.
Is that not a good story? I shouldn't
I
have
don't
told
know.
it.
It wasn't like mental health.
That was
right?
mental health. It was a dark time.
It was
for
a dark
me.
time for
Yeah.
you. And the podcast was your shining
I
light.
guess it gave me some kind of an outlet
For your creativity.
for the creativity, and to feel like I was being productive.
Right.
In a time when it would have been easy for me to just sit in that condo and kind of fester.
Oh, I wouldn't have let you do that, though. We
I
all
know.
that.
No, you're my saving grace, Michelle.
I would've-
Healing in community.
Totally.
Look at that.
Totally. Yeah. No.
And listen, the Big Sky community was so helpful in terms of help of us getting that off the ground.
And also just embracing us, like the community theater has been such a great resource for,
true.
you know, the mental health issues. And like we had during the like height of the pandemic when things were like bad, we had the radio show that we did with the community theater.
Yeah. During the pandemic, we did a social distancing theater
Like
thing.
we were all in a round far away from each other with masks on. And it was just like, it felt so good because like we were connected.
To connect,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
What an amazing outlet and connection point. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful.
Okay,
Okay,
enough
it's my
beating
turn?
around the bush. Your
Okay.
turn, Shannon. And short storytelling. Go.
Okay, I like to relate my mental health challenges to mountain biking because I have gone over the handlebars, under down trees, and through so much suck of just suffer festing, but knowing that
And it's over. You can finish.
to be continued later.
No, you can
No.
totally
Knowing that
continue your
you're
story.
going to be okay.
Please.
Yeah, knowing that like you can trudge through and it's going to suck for a while, but you will reach the top of the mountain and you will have a sick view every now and then. And then you will go down again and have a fun ride. I do like the downhill. We
Oh,
talked
see.
about
You know.
mountain biking, but I love the downhill.
Yeah,
And sometimes you crash and like
you do.
pick yourself, dust yourself off.
Totally.
And but I think the best part of it is mountain biking with other humans in community because
Yeah.
then you're not alone in that suck.
Yes.
It's huge.
Yeah.
There we
Especially
go.
the gnarly
You
uphills.
probably win the game because you incorporated over, under, or through. We did not.
We did not
And
do
ours-
anything.
All in 15 seconds. That was impressive.
Thank you.
You're well trained.
She went last, so she had some time to prep. Maybe.
Still, we were shown
It's fine.
up.
That was good.
Michelle,
That was well
it's
trained.
okay
You
to
did
admit
fine.
when you're beaten.
You were the best.
Are you sure we shouldn't have you two on stage for the over under through event? I think that you got something here.
Yeah, you can definitely FaceTime us in.
Okay.
And we'll give our 15-second story. Thank you so much for joining us
We
and
appreciate your
telling
time.
us all about Be Well Big Sky. It's a neat organization.
Yeah.
You guys are doing good work.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for having me and for giving this platform to share. I'm so excited and hope everybody attends and
Yes,
kind of sees
October 1st.
themselves in that. Yeah.
Lone
Awesome.
Mountain Ranch.
I'm not right.
6 to 9 p.m.
There we go.
8 people.
And there's going to be food. Amazing
Ooh, wait,
food.
There's food. That always sells me.
Yes.
Horn and Candle?
Yeah, I mean Lone Mountain Ranch Kitchen.
So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Very good.
All right.
Well, have a good rest of your day. Go over, under, and through it.
Yes.
Be
We're
well.
in this together. Thank you guys.